Get ready for more Snyder Cult hashtags because Netflix, well, looks like they're cutting ties with the Snyder Cult's boy, Zack Snyder. That's right, Netflix has reportedly quietly canceled Army of the Dead sequels and animated series. Well, those of you who know, Zack Snyder made a deal with Netflix a number of years ago. I believe it was about 3 years ago to develop, and it was a first look deal with Netflix to develop multiple films and projects for Netflix, essentially. We got Army of the Dead, we got this Twilight of the Gods, man, I can't even talk, Twilight of the Gods, and we got the Rebel Moon movies. Now, Army of the Dead came out, back in 2020, I believe it was. Maybe it was 2021. It was 2021, I believe. That movie came out, and it actually wasn't half bad. But he had a plan to make this a universe. He actually made a prequel film he was a producer on called Army of Thieves. That one wasn't too hot. But Army of the Dead wasn't terrible. It wasn't as bad as Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2 was. Those movies were atrocious. But Army of the Dead was okay. But he had plans for a sequel. Now, this coming from what's on Netflix via The Wrap. It says Army of the Dead was meant to be Netflix's fun and emboldened new horror franchise with plans for more entries. However, following Rebel Moon's recent release of the R-rated versions, it's been revealed any plans for Army of the Dead sequels, including Planet of the Dead and its animated prequel Lost Vegas, have quietly been shelved. This according to The Wrap. Here's the full segment. Army of the Dead, a movie the Snyders made for Netflix before Rebel Moon, had a similarly ambitious plan as Rebel Moon's, which Rebel Moon's is very ambitious of a large-scale universe, with several sequels and spin-offs in the works. One, the prequel Army of Thieves, was actually released along with an animated series. The animated series was quietly canceled along with plans for subsequent films. So there you have it. Army of the Dead, pretty much canceled. Rebel Moon is pretty much canceled. I did a video just about it a few days ago talking about how Rebel Moon is done and over with. Zack, in an interview, is talking about all these small projects that he has lined up. Rebel Moon is in the rearview mirror. Netflix, look, his deal with Netflix is done. There's been no renewal with Netflix. There's no new first look deal. There's nothing that's been announced with Netflix. Had there been a renewal, had there been this excitement to keep Zack Snyder at Netflix, don't you think they would have announced something by now? There is this understanding. There is this, again, understand. We'll just go with understanding. There's this understanding with studios after working with Zack that he isn't this big director, filmmaker. He's not the next Nolan. He's not the next Spielberg. He's not the next Tim Burton. He's not this big artistic or straightforward director. He's not going to bring the audience that you want to a studio. He's not going to bring you the numbers that you want to a studio. That's just not who he is. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy his films. That doesn't mean that the films he makes you can't like. More power to you. Go like his films if you want to. But the thing is, he's not going to be successful when you just give him the reins and he can run wild. That's not what's going to happen. He needs to be reined in. He needs to be given a direction. His best films are typically whenever he's not the one in complete control. You take a look at his filmography over the years. His best films are whenever he has a very strong writing partner or partners. Whenever it's an established IP that has a very strong base already built in. Those are the films and the franchises that he has success with, typically. Look at Man of Steel. Strong writer with David Goyer. Strong producer with Chris Nolan and Jonathan Nolan. Strong team. Strong movie. But you give him Batman vs. Superman and give him more freedom. Justice League, give him more freedom. And things start to go off the rails. And then you see with Army of the Dead and then Rebel Moon where he gets all this freedom and it just goes even further off the rails and just gets wild. You may like that as an audience member. but the mass audience doesn't. The general audience doesn't. And it's not good financially for studios to be putting in the type of money that he needs to make these films. And that's just unfortunate for him and for some of his fans and audience members. He needs to be reined in. And he can make good films. He's kind of like if you think about it, he is an over eccentric and over a bigger vision, a bigger visionary of like Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith is like a much smaller independent filmmaker. He likes more of the wordy films. Zack Snyder is like Kevin Smith on a large scale. He loves the visuals and the big films, but he doesn't catch everybody's eye. Just like Kevin Smith, he doesn't catch everybody's eye. He has his following. He knows his niche, and that's what he needs to stick to. And he does. He found a way to stick to it. Zack Snyder has to do the same thing. Find a way to stick to what he's good at, but the big studios aren't going to pay for it. So he needs to find a new way to stick to what he's good at and find a way to pay for it. Netflix has learned that. Warner Brothers learned that. Warner Brothers learned it first. Netflix has now learned it. I saw somebody try and say Amazon needs to get them. They're going to not do it. But if they did, they're going to learn the same thing Netflix did. And they're going to do the same thing. Couple movies and he's gone. Studios will learn it very quickly. But that's it, guys. I mean, the Netflix Snyder experiment's over. What's next? What's next for Zack Snyder? Like he said, he's got some small projects, and I think that's by design, because I think he realizes it now. I think he and Deborah Snyder, whatever you call her, Deborah Snyder, realizes that he needs to tone it back, bring it back down, make some smaller films, maybe get in the good graces of some of these studios that maybe will be willing to give him some cash. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below, what you think about this. Hey, it is what it is. I tried to warn you all a few days ago, but nobody wanted to listen to me. Everybody just wanted to call me a Snyder hater. Look, I'm a Snyder fan. I like his filmography. I didn't like Rebel Moon, but most of his other films I enjoy. It just sucks. I mean, again, you can see what type of filmmaker he is and still enjoy his films. Be a realist, understand who he is, and still like his films. You don't need to get so upset about it. It is what it is. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, share this around. And with all that said, I'll catch you all later.